let's set the stage for you. It was October 13th last year. Henry Paulson was running the Treasury Department. Tim Geithner, who is now the Treasury Secretary, was running the New York Fed. Ben Bernanke was the Fed chief. Sheila Bair was running the FDIC. Many of the same players. And 9 of the biggest, most powerful bank CEOs were summoned to Washington. And during about 3.5 hours on that afternoon, were essentially told the United States government, with taxpayer money, is going to take a stake in your banks. You're going to take that money, and we're going to announce it tomorrow, and we're going to tell the world that you are healthy and that you are doing this for the betterment of the American economy and financial stability. We know this because of documents that were released from a Freedom of Information request revealed or given to us by a Judicial Watch that show the emails and the talking points and the schedule of what was happening in those harried hours on October 13th, a Monday last fall. There's a set of talking points that were prepared for the Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson, and on those talking points, they were called the CEO talking points, and it was very clear. We don't believe it's tenable to opt out. Also, if a capital infusion is not appealing, you should be aware your regulator will require it in any circumstance. Again and again, these points about what the government was going to try to do to arrest the distress, as they put it, in the financial system, and how the banks were going to be a part of that, and how indeed the United States taxpayer would be taking a stake in those banks. The documents also very revealing because they show that these CEOs were invited. They came into the Treasury Department. There was some concern among Treasury staff about the cameras, the news cameras that showed up outside of the building and were actually filming the arrivals of these CEOs. There was some concern about that. There was some concern about making sure that both presidential candidates had been alerted by Henry Paulson that this was taking place, and also a little bit of talk in some of the email traffic about how to play this, a public relations move, if you will, to downplay fears that this was a nationalization of the banks. So a really historic day, and more detail, more color we have now about just what was exactly happening there as this incredible intervention of the financial system was taking place. And Nicole, it's so interesting, too, because as you know, over the past few months, there's been a lot of public outrage, a play, if you will, populist anger of these greedy banks taking American taxpayer money, and how dare they, and really a pushback against these banks. But these documents do reveal, in fact, that the government had this plan to invest in the banks, to take a stake in the banks with taxpayer money through that TARP, that Troubled Asset Relief Plan, and that the banks were told how it was going to happen. Now, another thing that these emails and documents show, some 27 or 30 pages of documents, they also show that these CEOs were given a piece of paper, and it had a place for the name of the bank, a place for how much money the investment by the government was going to be, essentially how much money in taxpayer money was going to be given to the banks, and then a place to sign and date it, almost like a permission slip. 4 little points on it. And one of those points on these permission slips from the banks, a permission slip that really, it's incredible that it was the starting point, the genesis for what would be a very controversial bailout of the banking system. But one of those points said that the bank was promising to lend money to consumers and businesses, to keep lending money to consumers and businesses. And, of course, they have been criticized for not doing that. Many of them say they have been, but for not doing that. So just more details about the urgency and the sense of distress in the financial system at that time, and how the Treasury Department putting pressure on these banks to accept taxpayer money. The Treasury Department would not comment on these documents released by Judicial Watch under the Freedom of Information request. They would not comment. But we do know they are looking forward. They are a lot of plans that are still under place, that are still being changed. And Henry Paulson, a spokesman for Henry Paulson, said Henry Paulson does not speak from talking points. And that was all they would say.
Wow. It seems like the banks had no choice. This changes the national dialogue completely, and I'm sure we're just going to continue to get more details here. It is fascinating, Christine. I do want to get to your Roman numeral, because this is also fascinating to me.
Yes.
You have this new thing, and it's just a numeral, but it means a lot more.
a little number to make you think and a little number to put the news in perspective. And this is a number about the stimulus. And the number, Roman's numeral, is 6%.
What is that?
And this is how much of the stimulus money, the $787 billion in stimulus money, has been spent, has been injected into the economy. 6%. Much of that is in aid to states. Some $45 billion, $50 billion or so in aid to states. And you're going to start to feel that because you're going to start to feel it in your community. But it's only 6%. Two ways to look at it. Only 6% has been spent. What's taking so long? The government assures us they are on track. They are on the right timeline. The other way to look at it is, wow, that's an awful lot of money. Tens of billions of dollars have already been injected to the economy. It kind of shows you just how big the overall stimulus is as well. But 6%, that's how much money has landed on the street, so to speak, and a lot more to come.